Hello everyone! We've discussed a series of concepts related to fate and destiny, and they've been quite well received. However, it seems that everyone prefers to hear me talk about the purely academic techniques and knowledge in the study of fate. But I really want to tell you all, no matter what you're learning, having the right mindset is very important. Once you have the right mindset, those techniques won't just become something you have to memorize by force, or tricks you have to recite, no matter how good, complex, or impressive they are. In fact, all of them stem from fundamental concepts. My perspective on the study of fate has always been to help everyone help themselves and to understand themselves. It's not about rote memorization. Most people don't necessarily need to become fate consultants, but with a good perspective on the philosophy of fate, at the very least, you won't run into trouble. So, what are we talking about today? Today, we're discussing whether fortune telling is actually accurate or not. This can even lead to the question, which is more accurate, BaZi or Wei Dou Shu? So, is Qimen Dunjia more powerful, or is palmistry more powerful? It's like when we debate whether Tai Chi or Wing Chun is better. Students often ask me this, and I always tell everyone, whichever one can actually defeat someone is the better one. Similarly, whichever method gives accurate predictions is the better one. If something has been passed down to the present day and has a well-established system, then, in terms of details, we can distinguish which technique is better at which aspect. But honestly, when it comes to practical application, there really isn't much difference. So, some people think BaZi is good at certain things or Zi Wei Shu is good at others, but honestly, that kind of argument is pretty ridiculous. For example, if Dou Shu says someone will get divorced and then they do, does that mean BaZi would say they definitely won't? That's impossible. It's not about which school or technique is absolutely right or wrong. Sometimes it just means that person's reading wasn't accurate. So first of all, we need to understand that a complete system of fate calculation, whether it's BaZi, Zi Wei, Qimen, or whatever, as long as if someone has studied it thoroughly and learned it in a proper, systematic way, then basically there will be a certain level of accuracy. Now, when we talk about whether fortune telling is accurate or not, usually the people who question this fall into a few categories. First, they may have had an inaccurate reading before, but is that really a problem with fortune telling itself? No, that's an issue with that particular practitioner. Second, some people simply don't believe in fortune telling, so they assume it's always inaccurate. But if you don't believe in fortune telling, do you believe in doctors? Do you believe in meteorologists? If you think that these are different from the study of fate, then it actually means you don't really understand the field of fate studies. In ancient times, the study of fate was basically tied together with medicine. The reason why fate studies are often criticized is actually because of the mystical and superstitious elements associated with them. But at its core, it is an extremely scientific discipline. However, without a rigorous educational system and strict assessments to support this highly scientific field, it easily devolves into superstition and charlatanism. Oh, it's very easy for some people, once they've mastered a bit of knowledge, to start using that knowledge to deceive others. Everyone probably knows that I don't do much fortune telling myself, but I spend a lot of time teaching. The reason is that the more people who understand this knowledge, the more scientific it becomes, and the more efficiently it can be shared by everyone. When knowledge is widely shared, it prevents scams that arise from knowledge gaps. So what's the third type? The third type? Yes, some people might think, well, what if fortune telling is accurate? Then if I get my fortune told and I can't change anything, wouldn't that be miserable for me? I'd rather not know. Honestly, if that's how you think, I think that's perfectly fine. Because life is meant to be lived by your own efforts. And if fortune telling isn't accurate, then what's the point of doing it? On these points, I like to use an analogy for everyone. It's like a health checkup report. As I mentioned earlier, in the past, metaphysics and medicine were actually closely linked. For example, in the art of Zi Wei Dou Shu, it contains very deep concepts from ancient Chinese medicine. It even preserves aspects of soul studies that modern Chinese medicine can no longer use, or perhaps is unwilling to face due to the context of the times. Our current view of medicine, doctors, let me tell you, for example, if you have stage 4 cancer, nowadays they don't call it terminal, they say stage 4. You might only have a few months left to live. Isn't the doctor making a prediction? Yes, but where does the real accuracy come from? The real accuracy comes from research data, from statistics, from the doctor's assessment of your condition, from his experience, and from his understanding of you. So he can estimate roughly how much time you have left, but can this be changed? And if it does change, does that mean the doctor was inaccurate? It's the same with fate studies. Under normal circumstances, we can make some analyses and judgments. After the analysis and judgment, a direction or a situation can be described. But does that mean it can't be changed? Not necessarily. If I don't get divorced next year, does that mean the teacher was inaccurate? Maybe it's because the teacher gave you some advice to improve your relationship with your husband or wife, so you didn't end up getting divorced. The question of whether fate studies are accurate or not, unless you encounter someone who is like, if you encounter a fake fortune teller, then under normal circumstances, this can't really be considered a genuine issue. It's actually a false issue. Because after all, it's a discipline based on analysis and deduction. And through this process, we can understand the general situation and direction. Depending on your abilities, experience, academic background, personal talent, and research, you can narrow that gap down to an extremely small margin. At that point, people will feel, oh, what you say is really accurate. But if you can't do your homework well in these areas, then there might be some discrepancies, and people will feel that your accuracy isn't very high. If we look at the accuracy of fortune telling from a scientific perspective, it can provide us with a clear sense of direction and can also tell us about things that might happen in the future, just like various other types of prediction and knowledge. When a fisherman with a lot of experience looks at the sea and says, "Wow, there are fish over there," does that mean there will definitely be fish if he goes there? Can he guarantee it? Even the fisherman wouldn't dare to make such a claim. It's the same for doctors, and fortune tellers are actually doing something similar. It's the same situation. When we go for fortune telling, we often encounter people who think, "Wow, that master is amazing, so powerful. He can even talk about the most detailed things." But here's the problem. Not everyone has those kinds of things in their life that can be used as evidence. Not everyone has major events to talk about, like abortion, divorce, company bankruptcy, layoffs, or the death of a parent. Not everyone who comes for a fortune-telling session has so many things in their life for you to point out. So what if they don't have those things? Honestly, if they don't, what are you supposed to tell them? Your financial luck isn't so good this year. This year, everyone's spinning star is in the wealth sector, so nobody's financial luck is particularly good. Sometimes this makes what you say sound really vague, but that's just because there really isn't much to talk about. But if this is a situation where there are clear things you can talk about. Honestly, with systematic training, it's definitely achievable. What I just mentioned, in fact, are all examples from when we teach classes. These are the kinds of questions students get on exams. I'll tell you, for example, when this person will get divorced, which month, which year, or when they'll start a business. When will this person receive an apology from a friend? For what reason? In reality, being able to do this isn't actually that difficult, but when you're actually doing a fortune-telling session, you might not get the teacher to say these things because maybe these things haven't happened to you. Maybe your life has been going smoothly. So how do we determine whether this teacher is really accurate enough, whether they're truly skilled? I suggest everyone watch his videos and see if he speaks logically. If what he tells you is all based on logic, if he analyzes things rationally, you can sense that he has insights into many matters. Even if his fortune-telling skills aren't particularly advanced, the advice he gives won't be too bad. But if what you hear is all about talking to you about his karmic obstacles and all sorts of mysterious, superstitious things without any logic or reasoning, then honestly, you need to be cautious. And you should start to have doubts. How exactly is fortune-telling done? Fortune-telling is definitely accurate. The question is, are you looking for the right teacher?